I'm Walter S. Gerard, Sunday School Director for New Spirit Baptist Church here in Dallas, Texas, where the Reverend Otis Grimes is pastor. And our lesson for today, October the 19th, in the year of our Lord 2025, is a family's example. The reference scriptures for this lesson are taken from the book of Jeremiah, the 35th chapter, and the 5th through the 11th verse. This is lesson 7 in our lesson series, Judah from Isaiah to the Exile. And it's lesson 3 in unit 2 of this lesson series, Jeremiah and the Promise of Renewal. Unit 2, Jeremiah and the Promise of Renewal. We are familiar with the term family tradition, or at least most of us are. Some traditions are good and should be kept, and some traditions need to change as times change. God, through the prophet Jeremiah, used a certain family's tradition as an example for being faithful to his word. And we will see how in this lesson. The reading of the scriptures from the New International Version of the Bible, Jeremiah, the 35th chapter, and the 5th through the 11th verse, is as follows. Then I set bowls of full wine and some cups before the Rechabites and said to them, drink some wine. But they replied, we do not drink wine, because our forefather Jehonadab, son of Rechab, gave us this command. Neither you nor your descendants must ever drink wine. Also, you must never build houses, sow seed, or plant vineyards. You must never have any of these things, but must always live in tents. Then you will live a long time in the land where you are nomads. We have obeyed everything our forefather Jehonadab, son of Rechab, commanded us. Neither we nor our wives nor our sons and daughters have ever drunk wine or built houses to live in or had vineyards or fields or crops. We have lived in tents and have fully obeyed everything our forefather Jehonadab commanded us. But when Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invaded this land, we said, come, we must go to Jerusalem to escape the Babylonian and Aramean armies. So we have remained in Jerusalem. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading, the hearing, and the understanding of his holy word. Our printed text begins after God told his prophet Jeremiah to go to the Rechabite family and invite them to the temple and offer them wine. Jeremiah, the 35th chapter and the 2nd verse, which was not in our printed text. This family was from the tribe of Judah, as we see in 1 Chronicles, the 2nd chapter, and the 55th verse. They were descendants of the Canaanites. As we see in verse 5, Jeremiah was obedient and did what God told him to do. He set bowls of wine before them and said to them, drink some wine. But we see in verse 6 that the Rechabites refused. They said that their forefather had commanded them and their descendants to never drink wine. Their forefather was Jehonadab, son of Rechab. He was a prominent leader of the Rechabites about 200 years earlier, during the reign of King Jehu of the northern kingdom of Israel. We don't know why Jehonadab commanded his descendants to not drink wine. Although wine has been consumed by God's people as far back as the patriarchs, which we see in Genesis, the 27th chapter and the 28th verse, it was prohibited to those engaged in special service to the Lord, such as those who take the Nazirite vow, which we see in Numbers, the 6th chapter and the 1st through the 3rd verse. Whatever the reason, he commanded his family to not drink wine. Not only did Jehonadab command the Rechabites, his family, to not drink wine, but as we see in verse 7, he also commanded them to not build houses, sow seeds, or plant vineyards, but rather to always live in tents. And we get a hint of why he gave them these commands in the last sentence of verse 7. He says, so that they will live a long time in the land where they were nomads. Now, God didn't make these commands on his people in order for them to live in the promised land. So why would Jehonadab command his family like this? Perhaps he didn't want them to desire worldly life or their own resources more than depending on God for all their needs, as the Israelites did when they were wandering in the wilderness. We may never know, however, he did command his family as such. We see in verse 8 through 10 that the Rechabites declared that they and their wives, their sons and daughters, had obeyed everything their forefather Jehonadab had commanded them. Never drink wine, they never built houses to live in or plant vineyards or crops, but rather they had lived in tents and fully obeyed everything their forefather Jehonadab had commanded them. We see in the final verse of our printed text, verse 11, that the Rechabites left their tents and fled to Jerusalem when they found out that the army of Nebuchadnezzar and of Babylon was on their way. They said that they must go to Jerusalem to escape the Babylonian and Aramean armies, and they remained there. Now, was this finally disobeying their forefather Jehonadab? No. Their tradition of living in tents had to change because they had to survive. They heard God's prophets say that foreign kings would attack Judah because of Judah's sinfulness and destroy it. So they knew that if this was God's will, they needed to get out of the way. And behind the walls of Jerusalem was their safest place to be. What's not in our printed text, and it beats me why not, is verses 12 through 16, in which God tells Jeremiah to go to the people of Judah and Jerusalem and ask them to learn from the descendants of Jehonadab. He says they obeyed their forefather and to that day did not drink wine. Yet he has sent his prophets to them again and again, commanding them to change their sinful ways. And again they did not listen. We see in this lesson that we can obey God if we want to. Some of us keep family traditions for generations because our parents or grandparents started them. A tradition in my family is to ask God's blessings on the food we are about to eat, and my generation has kept it. So if we can obey our family traditions, we should certainly be able to obey God, as he showed through his prophet Jeremiah with the Rechabite family as an example. A family's tradition. I hope you've gained at least one thought from this lesson. May God bless you, and may he ever keep you.